people are afraid to get into a startup because they think they got to develop something first, they got to build something first. I think you could go with a premise, and the idea is go test the premise. Go find a customer, go find a user, go find somebody who you think might have a problem that you could solve, and start the whiteboard exercise. You don't even have to put, you don't even have to start coding. You don't even have to start building. You can just start to test your thesis that there's a problem and that you have an idea for a solution, and get that dialogue going with real customers and get that feedback. And then it's a real iterative process of getting feedback and being able to react to that feedback. And it'll let you know whether you have a good idea or not. And if you don't have a good idea, do something else. As my title says, I'm now working here at Northeastern, so I've done a bit of a career change after many, many years in technology and startups. For the last few years, I've actually my roles have been as an interim CEO for in various tech startups or tech situations where the investors have brought me in to basically work on some troubled situation. And during this time, I had gotten involved with Northeastern's IDEA program, which Kevin will talk about a little later. So I joined as chair of the board of advisors for IDEA about 3 years ago, which has become a very successful organization. And as a result of that, I decided to come on, work full-time, helping to create the ventures at the Northeastern community. I do sit on the board of a number of companies, one public company, and I've had a lot of years in technology.
So hey everybody, my name is Greg. I just graduated in May, so it was like 6 months ago. So I've always kind of had the entrepreneurship tech bug. So I started my first company when I was 14, doing PC repair and web development. So fixing other people's computers. And when you're in technology, I guess people who don't understand technology assume you know everything about technology. So they asked me to make them a website, and I said, well, if you give me $1,000, I'll try. And they did, so I kept doing it, and before I knew it, I was running a web design business. And I ended up running that for 7 years, all into junior year of Northeastern. And all in between, I got involved in a few other tech startups. I did 2 co-ops, one with Cisco as a network engineer down in Dallas, Texas, and then another as a tech project manager at a VC-backed startup in Durham, North Carolina, right around the corner from Duke. And then in between there, I got involved in the Entrepreneurs Club back when it was just a baby. There were 10 people in the room, and I was the IT guy, so I made them their website. First website, and then we ended up building up the Startup Challenge, and I led that. And then last year, when it started to get really big, I took over as president, and that's when we had kind of multiplied it from 10 people in the room every week to between 75 and 150, a budget of $100 in the bank to $35,000, and a management team of 4 to now 25. So 6 months in, I joined Influencers At. Just quick background on that, where it's now a year and a month old startup marketing company, and we help other companies connect with college students. So I like to pitch it as, if another company wants to make their product or their service cool to you all, they can hire us to help them do that. And we'll do it through a mixture of on-campus events, street team marketing, guerrilla marketing, social media, anything that helps build buzz and drive excitement and get you guys to look at something, try something, share something, talk about something, or ultimately buy something. I mean, we've used the profit that we've earned from that service business to launch a software product called Chattermob. It's basically a website where people can go and answer market research questions and get free stuff in return. So that's our software product. We, again, been live for a month and a half. We've now had a little over 700,000 questions answered. So somebody has clicked the answer to a question a little over 700,000 times. And that's across 2,500 different users. And as for my role there, as Sabrina said, I'm the Chief Operating Officer, so I do a little bit of everything.
Hi everybody, my name is Sean Negley. So I graduated in 2011. I graduated as industrial engineering, and I guess when I came to Northeastern and throughout my 5 years here, I really expected to be an industrial engineer, graduate with like a normal job. I did my first 2 co-ops at P&G, Procter & Gamble, Gillette down in South Boston, very typical engineering job. It wasn't until about I'd say like early in my senior year where I joined up with another student leader on campus, and we both agreed that we have a list of ideas. Like, so as an engineer, you're constantly coming up with solutions to problems. Whether or not they're good solutions, I don't know, but you always see a problem every day and say, all right, this could be a potential solution for that. So we met one day and we said, all right, let's pick one of these problems and really focus on it and try to make something out of it. So that was still with the engineering approach to solving a problem, not really ever really considering that I'm going to be an entrepreneur or anything like that. So we continued to work on it, and then it came time for graduation, and when I graduated in 2011, I continued at one of my co-op employers, which was Beth Israel Hospital. So I just went with the secure thing of getting a job, working there, and I stayed there for about a year and a half, up until this past August, where I left Beth Israel so that way I could dedicate my time full-time to be an entrepreneur. It's been an awesome ride. I guess the idea started developing around about a year and a half ago, and the idea that we're talking about is SplashScore. So Epiphia is the company that we started, and we started Epiphia under the mentality that we would take many of those ideas that we had from that list or add more, and eventually, year after year, work on new and different ideas, not just targeting one specifically. So SplashScore is our first product that we picked. We thought it'd have the best market, tech, and financial feasibility to work on. So we've been working on that, and it's been a pretty exciting ride.
So yeah, I'm Kevin. I'm a communications officer for IDEA. I'm a junior political science and communication major. IDEA is a student-created and run university program, and we provide coaching and funding and resources to student, faculty, and alumni creative ventures here at Northeastern. We currently have 107 ventures. 7 of them are launched, so they're self-sustaining or investment ready. And we cover all participants or students from all colleges at Northeastern can be part of it. And we actually have a representative from each college right now. And then all industries, so we have tech, biotech, retail, mobile apps, you name it, and you can join. So there's 3 ways we can get involved. One is to become a venture, one is to become a coach, and one is to become part of the management team. So at IDEA, if you have an idea for a business, you can come to us, become part of the program, and then we'll help you with business development, sort of set your milestones and set your goals. And then so first is to become a venture, second, a coach. Every venture that comes into IDEA is assigned with a coach, and the coach sort of helps them along that process. So it's individual, it's a one-on-one basis, and they help set your milestones and help with funding ideas, sort of like create your business with you. And then we have a few different important facets of IDEA. One is our service providers, which Influencers is now. We have 22, most of them are Boston area, that provide in-kind services, so services free of charge for our ventures, ranging from marketing, PR, legal services, accounting, anything that any of our ventures need. And they also host workshops, so they'll discuss industry trends and sort of 101, depending on who the venture is. Then one of our more popular resources is funding. So if you have a hole in your business development and you need money to get it past that, that's why you would apply for debt funding. And for our more established ventures, it's called the Investor Network, and that's when we help you tap into VCs and angels, which Bob leads that. Third is the management team. I'm one of 18, and we sort of run the back end of IDEA and support our ventures. So I do communications, so anything internal and external, PR-wise and media-wise, we help with that.
The biggest challenge is financial. So as you're starting to build the company, the money situation is really tough, and it's always tough, right? So you're always thinking about, making sure you have enough funding, and that's something that people don't think enough about, which is how much funding you need and how you spend your money. Because cash is definitely king. So one of the challenges that I've seen over the years is people are getting tighter with the dollars. Investors are getting tighter. They're really forcing companies to do more with less. Now the world's changed, so the use of social media, the use of smartphone applications. It doesn't take much to develop the product. So you have to be even smarter about how you use the dollars, because investors want to give you less. They want to place more bets, and they want to do more companies. So the opportunity to raise a lot of money is really very difficult.
Yeah, so I'd say the biggest challenge overall if you're in a startup is the pressure. It's, other people, our customers are basically paying us to deliver something, some sort of product or service for their business that they're relying on to make their business work. So if we screw that up, we could be screwing up somebody else's company. And if we don't make enough money, we have 10 people they're full-time in the office. There are 10 people that rely on what we're doing to put food on their table and pay their rent. And that is, for a startup entrepreneur, for a founder, a leader, that is really, really, really scary. Which means that we have to be really innovative, we have to be really quick, we have to pivot when things don't work, we have to put out fires very quickly, we have to hustle to get sales, we have to iterate on our products quickly. Every failure counts a lot, every success counts a lot. But that pressure that weighs in on you every day, it's a pretty hefty weight on your shoulders if you want to lead a startup kind of company.
So I guess one thing that I didn't expect was how much. So I'll start by saying, I'll use a reference again as Beth Israel. So I was working there on my co-ops. You do what you went to school for. So I was an industrial engineer, and I did my day-to-day was industrial engineering work. Everything I did in class, everything I did in my previous co-ops, I applied to what I was doing. And I guess what I didn't expect in being part of a small 3-person team was you do a lot of things that you didn't go to class or ever learn how to do. And a good example would be, so I am responsible on user acquisition. So how can we get more people into the app, using the app, playing Splashcore and getting rewards? A huge component of that is marketing. So what you can imagine for an industrial engineer is that marketing is probably basically a foreign language to them. So there are a lot of things that you have to do when it's only a couple of you, that, like even customer service. That's not something engineers typically do, is be the front-facing person to their customers. So things like that you couldn't imagine doing, like Greg mentioned, he does some coding on the side, like things like that are just, you have to be willing and able to learn, you have to be willing to ask for help, and really take on many different hats to make it succeed. And if you're interested in learning a lot of different things and not just doing what your core couple classes taught you how to do, then it's definitely a good place. It's just something I didn't expect, but I'm, as a result, learning a lot.
So learning technical skills, learning how to code, I think is one of the most valuable things you can do if you're interested in software. So how to approach that? I'd say to start, most things are happening, at least in tech startups now, it's on the web. So learning how to build software that runs on the web, so that's websites. The languages I learned are HTML, CSS, JavaScript for visuals, and then PHP and MySQL databases. How to learn it? It's all for free on the internet. You don't have to pay for a degree, you don't have to register for an extra class, it's all right on the internet. There's tutorials. I think the way I did it was a mixture of tutorials, going any website, you can go to view page source and see the exact code that made it. It's all free, it's all legal, you can look at it, you can copy and paste it, try it on your own. And then finding other people that know how to code and asking them a lot of questions. I call them code buddies. So one of the biggest challenges if you're trying to learn technical skills, learning how to code, is you get stuck really quickly, and when you get stuck and you don't know what to do, you're stuck. You cannot move forward and keep learning until you unstick yourself. So I find that if I have a whole bunch of people on my short list on IM that I'll immediately go to when I get stuck, and they know way more than me, and they'll quickly unstick me, explain to me what they did, I'll go, oh, okay, now I get it, and then I can move to the next thing.
A good example would be, there's a website called Udemy, U-D-E-M-Y, and I took a course there. It was like 35, 40 minutes last week, and you basically just sit in front of your computer with maybe another computer, you put on your TV, and it's just going step by step, basics of coding. So it was like an intro to HTML and CSS. So like that was completely free, and I learned it, spent 40 minutes. So I would say that you can apply what you're passionate about and what you're studying to an idea in almost any sort of way. So for an example, the Facebook application that's very focused on social media and your social influence that we're working on, at face value has not really anything to do with industrial engineering, but behind the application there's an algorithm that calculates your score. And so that was my primary responsibility when we first started the app, was creating this algorithm of how much a like and comment's worth, how does that roll up into like your total points, then how does your points change by day. So it's a huge algorithm that I was able to tackle because of an engineering background. So I think there's definitely, at least in my opinion, a way you can apply whatever discipline you have to whatever startup you're trying to work on.
I'd say it, from my opinion, it depends a little bit. So, yeah, particularly when I was running the Entrepreneurs Club, every week a business student would email me and say, I want to start this software company, do you know any developers? And I thought to myself, well, if you want to start a software company and you don't know anything about software, are you going to have what it takes to build it? So I think that if you have to figure out how you can apply your skills to the company. So in Sean's case, he figured out how to apply his industrial engineering skills to a company that maybe doesn't focus on industrial engineering. For him, it worked. I think that I have absolutely no background in mechanical engineering. So if I'm going to go and build a physical product, then my focus either needs to be I'm really great at customer service and sales and marketing, and I partner with a really great engineer. But if I know nothing about software, and I kind of want to just outsource building my product to another firm, I'm not a big supporter of that one. So I think that you got to figure out what your skills are, and let's say you do need a partner that maybe is going to be the builder. You have to figure out how can you pitch to him or her what value you add. So let's say you're starting a software company and you're the business person, and the software company is around trash collection software. Track how many times you pick up garbage. So you should know the garbage industry inside and out. You should have connections to all the players in the garbage industry. You should have a whole Rolodex of them. You should be able to connect with them on LinkedIn. You should be able to mock up what the product looks like. You should have talked to people in the trash industry to know what they want. Then you can go to someone who builds and say, hey, I have all these connections. I have all these plans. If you come on and help me build it, here's what I can add to the table. Here's what I can bring to the table. Here's what you can bring to the table. So you approach it that way, it can make a lot of sense. So that's my thoughts on it.
Networking is essential to any successful startup, I think, and it fits in many different aspects of it, whether it's trying to find the skill sets that you need to complement, so what Greg was talking about, whether it's trying to find money. But most important in my mind is your startup is trying to fit in some sort of ecosystem, and the ecosystem is built around, from the, creation to consumption, creation of the product to the consumption of the product by a customer. And there's lots of different people that might sit in the way of this, people or companies that sit between your creation and how it gets ultimately consumed. And as a small company, you're relying on a lot of different groups, a lot of different people, a lot of different companies to help you in that delivery of your product. Whether it's building on something, whether it's distribution through somebody, whether you're relying on somebody else's technology for your delivery. And you need to develop those relationships. So networking is essential. And the advice I give you is you need to understand your ecosystem that you work in. You can't develop these things in a vacuum and say, okay, I've got it developed, now I'm going to try to sell it. You got to know who else is involved in the sales process. And so, yeah, you're out selling, you're out networking all the time.
So I'd say, who here goes to lots of startup events? Startup events? Okay. So, it's funny. So yesterday, the former creative director for the Entrepreneurs Club is now a designer at a tech startup in California, sent me an article about startup events, where the guy basically said, my rule of thumb is, if I go to a startup event, then as an attendee, I want to plan to be a presenter the next year, next time that event happens, which means that everybody who's here today should plan to be sitting on the panel Global Entrepreneurship Week next year. So the big idea is that networking is definitely very helpful. Going to events and meeting people and getting them out there is good, particularly to find your idea, figure out your idea, find your partners. I found that I spend a lot less time networking now because I'm so focused on building a company. And I think then so you kind of have to think, once to find your company, to find your idea, to find your partners, absolutely push really hard on networking. Once you have your thing and you want to kind of zero in and crank on it, there's other ways to do networking that it's more kind of time efficient and strategic. So networking through a cold email. So I'm a big believer in cold emails. Email strangers. It is shocking how frequently and willing they will be to get back to you and help you. So that's my networking strategy. Emailing strangers.
One thing I would say is, especially in the early stages, to don't be shy about talking about what you're trying to do, ever. Like, even if it's to your roommate, to your friends, to your family, your parents, whoever it may be, you can find help in absolutely the most random places. If your friends know and the people in whatever network you have know what you're doing. So yes, it's great to go to like startup events, go get in the startup community, but additionally there are people who aren't in the startup community who can definitely offer help, whether it's doing street team marketing or whether it's just coming up with ideas. Like if you have your friends using whatever product or knowing what you're doing, they'll definitely offer your feedback, and those are general people that could be potential users or customers one day, so having their feedback is definitely important.
Who here is currently a student, undergrad, or graduate? Like, the number one thing that you can do in Boston when you're emailing someone like Paul, who Greg emailed, is say, I'm a student. And they will reply to you. It's super valuable and something that people often overlook, and they're like, oh, I want to pretend I'm older or more mature or more experienced. Like, don't. Say you're a student, and people will be willing to be your mentor and help you out and get you where you want to be.
So I think that students should be really forward with asking those kinds of questions. Where is the company going in the next 6 months? What do you expect to happen while I'm here? Is there enough cash in the bank to pay me? In a startup, you can ask those kinds of questions. And I think you should be, as students, you should be judging the person that might be hiring you based on how they answer. If they tiptoe around and don't want to be forward with you, it might not be a good kind of culture. So that's how we approach it.
One is I'd ask, and if they're not honest with you, you're probably in a bad situation, all right? Because most startups, most young companies are pretty transparent, and so I think it's very important for you to understand. I would then look at the investors, and what type of investors are they? So if it's a venture firm or an angel firm, you could get some sense for, how supportive they've been of these ventures, and do they have the capacity to keep these things funded? And if you're really interested, call the venture capitalist if that's where the funding comes from, or call the the investor or the angel and say, how serious are you?
Again, it all depends on you and what you're interested in. I mean, if you're heavily risk averse, then you might not like to start up. But if you have a specific skill, if you're a PhD in data, or you're a data scientist, then big data startup would love to have you. If you're an expert in development or an expert in marketing, whatever it might be, you don't necessarily have to be a jack of all trades. There are plenty of times in a startup where we need specific expertise, and those are usually the most difficult to recruit for, and that carry the highest price tag, which means you make the most money. So absolutely, it all depends on what your skill set is.
Yeah, the benefit of a startup is your job scope is this. It's not this. So you'll be experiencing things that you might not have experienced if you go into a more structured environment.
I would say definitely one thing is take advantage of your time while you're a student. You'll never, maybe you'll have that time again, but you have a lot more time than you can ever imagine while you're a student. Somehow, once you graduate, that time all disappears. You don't have the flexibility, you don't have the same freedom, and like everybody says it, but like definitely I was a student a year and a half ago, and I wish I had started getting involved in some sort of entrepreneurial endeavor when I was a freshman, because it's not something I expected, but it's something that I wish I had more time to do. And you have a lot more time while you're a student also to fail, which is a very good way to learn a lot. And that can be a little bit more costly once you're not a student anymore. So try, if you have an idea, get a couple of friends together, try to do something, use resources like IDEA and the E-Club. They're there, like Corey said, while you're a student, it's much easier. And take an idea and try it, and I think that's when you'll learn the most. I already know that the next idea after SplashCore that we work on will be a million times better than SplashCore just because of how much we learned along the way. So just sitting around saying, oh, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this, you'll develop a long list like we had, and you won't get anywhere. So really just try to partner up with somebody who's passionate about it and get going.
I would say the biggest thing, while valuing your time as a student, also get outside the walls of the university. It really smacked me in the face when I graduated how much people outside didn't understand how like intense it was to like be on the e-board of a student organization, or like how relevant I felt like class projects were to the real world. Real world people respect when you're doing stuff in the real world. So balance the experience you're getting with running a student organization or doing class projects with, they could be internships, projects that touch customers outside of school, but that real world stuff is super valuable.
So, Bob mentioned earlier the lean startup, so I'm just going to do a quick plug on that. And I think the one big thing, that the key takeaway from the lean startup mentality is that you don't necessarily need a business plan to start coding, like you mentioned, to get your idea off the ground. You can create a simple survey on like surveymonkey.com, send it out to a bunch of people with your idea, a couple questions, and validate what your idea is. If you have an idea for create some sort of product, or to sell something, create a service, create like a Craigslist page, and don't ever fulfill anything, but just see how many hits you get. So there are really, really simple ways to test your idea and how people are interested in it before you start getting a team, even considering funding, create a business plan. All these things are really easy ways to get going.